Hello. I'm going to make sure that everything is working. Okay. Sounds like stuff is working. Citizen Sleeper has like a more like a thicker soundscape background than I think I was remembering. So looking at my like game audio waveform, I'd be like, that's really loud, except it's just there's a there, which is fun and part of why the game is so immersive. It kind of just wraps you up and pulls you in. Hello, QCG Aaron. Welcome to sad times in the far future, space precarity. However many times, like, I think how many streams did I do of this one? Like a whole run through, and then I did one of the DLC, and I don't remember exactly how long that went. It's not a long game, but it was amazing. What does... So it looks like four streams for the main game. That sounds about right. Okay. So yeah, seems like things are working. So we're going to go ahead and click to start. We're going to continue. And we were... We'll find out, because I played a lot of a different game, a different playthrough. We'll see. I may have to jump back out to the other save because I don't remember which one was which. Okay, this should be my character for the DLC. Because then the fleet... Yeah, the refugee fleet is up here. The cordon. Episode Refuge, or Refugee, begins when the cycle clock below is filled. So that's 3 days. The gathering storm. What's done is done. Now all you can do is wait to see what happens next. So, let's take a look. I need some food. Can I eat here? Can sunbathe, yes. So with Endure, I get a +1. These are my dice. They represent kind of, more or less, they're my spoons, if we're using spoon theory. Every day, if you're kind of high on this condition track, which represents like the how well is your android body holding up, then you get all 5 dice. Higher dice are more likely to succeed at things. Here, I want lots of energy. After a long rest in the sun, you feel buzzed from the glow, your thick synthetic skin warm to the touch. So I'm at 4 of 5 on that, which is good. I can self-repair with scrap components. I do have some, but I don't need to repair just yet because I'm still fine on the number 5 category. So I've reached the point with this game that I kind of... All I really need to do at this point is the DLC. This is dangerous, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and use my 6 to get scrap, because I can use scrap to repair myself. And that's very good, so I get 1 of those. I'm going to go back here and check and see if there's hacking to be done. No, this is my kind of hacker vision. Doesn't show anything. So there's more of this world. Oh, the Haifa. Okay, that's funny. I wonder if this was if the Haifa here is named for the people in Friends of the Table. There is a civilization called the Haifa. And I am pretty sure that previous oh yeah, you got the Tetris ad. I did not know that the Tetris movie was going to be so video gamey in terms of like Scott Pilgrim-esque effects, but the trailer that I just saw sure is filled with those. Okay, so we've got mushrooms. And then I need to plant more mushrooms, right? I need to collect spores. Let's do this one. And hope we succeed. Okay, good. You find clumps of spokes in a passage dripping with moisture. You gather them quickly, unable to identify their source. So you do mushrooms, you can use the mushrooms, and you can gain status, gain energy. I don't think I knew that the Tetris movie was rated R either, honestly. Okay, so we've used all the dice. We can end cycle. Mostly I am here for this new DLC. So I'm not going to be engaging with a lot of the game's other systems, and there may be places where I just kind of go through days pretty quickly because I'm waiting for the DLC stuff to kick in. So I'm going to go ahead and do more sunbathing for energy because it's free. Still okay on stabilizer, self-repair. That's fine. What am I looking at? Okay, so these are my active drives, and drives are basically quests, and when you complete them you get a level up for abilities or stat increases. I've already gotten a lot of these because I finished the main game and one of the DLC. So that's not as much a big priority for me, honestly. This is more scrap. Okay. But I can go ahead and get something else going. Commune. This is safe, so I can just use my low dice, and that's fine. And this one is... okay, these are the same. Let's do the one that takes danger. So we got G-roll caps, and then we're gonna do this one. And we get grow spores. So that's kind of, that's another day very quickly. Hey, Mighty Mur. Yes, I'm back in streaming time. Back with this gorgeous science fiction game. And the music, I've forgotten how nice the music is. I'm gonna have to go and see what the options for acquiring it legally are. I don't know if they sell if the DLC is like selling through Steam, or if I have to go and find a composer or anything, so that I can just have this whenever I want. Okay, so I'm down to 4 dice here because my condition is waning, but that is fine, and I can use a 4 to sunbathe. So we're back up to 5, and this is 2/3 full. So we're going to use our good die on this forage clock. And then I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to use the 4 to work the canteen. And then I'm going to re-roll my... okay, that becomes a 4. And then I have an intuitive +2, so I can put this in and get up to 6. Great. Lots of mushrooms. Okay, and then at home, I'm going to use one of my scrap components to self-repair. And that takes me up to here. Let's go ahead and do more. I thought you got more than one box condition per. I do not. That's good to know. I will need to harvest those more frequently than I thought. I do have a thing of stabilizer, but if I can use components to kind of keep myself going, that is it's more straightforward. And the stabilizer is more expensive resource-wise. Okay. So now... yep. the eye. It hits you like a wave, a white-edged breaker roaring inland with the force of the entire ocean. The impact is a screaming brightness, blanking out everything. Behind it is silence. You float in silence, suspended. No, you don't float. You are the silence. It has filled you up. It has emptied you out. You cease to exist. Time passes, though you do not feel it passing. Then something flickers in the silence, and then something moves. That something is you. You open your eyes to a metal ceiling of flickering lights. You feel the floor around you, patting it with shaking hands. You assemble an image of yourself lying on your back in a corridor. You shake off the silence and sit up. What was that? You glance around, looking for a sign of some change. Damage on the wall, shouts in the distance, fire and fear. Nothing has changed. The silence sits around you like fog. You try to think, furrowing your brow. How do you think again? It doesn't seem so easy anymore. You force the pathways to light up, the data banks to grant access. You feel like a fraction drive starting up after a long shutdown in cold vacuum. In the wave was noise. Just as the sound produced by a wave raking across a pebble beach represents trillions of impacts heard as a single roar, so this sound was the result of trillions of electrons flickering in place heard as a single impossible scream. A memory image comes to you, one from the moments before the wave hit. You squint as you imagine it trying to cohere its blurry form. A broken, skeletal ring. The eye. Then a vast arc approaching it, a razor-edged white curve. The wave. The wave approaches the eye. The eye spins, turning each part to face that vast white edge. You recognize their skeletal data cloud forms. The bright market, the low end, the greenway, the wastes. Then the wave hits just as the flotilla, the cordon, turns to face it. And after that, everything is silence. You open your eyes again. That is the epicenter. But of what? Did everything just get EMP'd? What's up? The cordon. Havenage quarantine zone. Even before you reach the cordon, the damage is obvious. The blinking red lights, the drones, the tugs, all gone. Half the cordon's frame has also been shorn away, perhaps through the impact of some failing ship. People push past you in the corridor, both Havenage staff and contractors, clearing the cordon. Try to speak to them. You're met with suspicious looks and scattered warnings, but little else. From the equipment being carried out, you suspect this is no relief effort. Havenage are pulling out of this section of the station. The further you pass into the cordon, the less people you see. You can see a few sections have been closed off, their bulkhead doors sealed and red warning lights punctuating the corridors. But otherwise most areas seem functional. Suddenly you feel a hand fall on your shoulder. Havenage security? You should have known better to wander in this place. You brace yourself as you turn. Sleeper. Peak embraces you as you turn. So it's been months and months since I played this game. I do not remember all the voices that I did, so apologies if they are different than last time. Peak embraces you as you turn. What are you doing here? Did you see the cordon go down? Did Eshe speak with you? Peak glances around, and you can see they are panicked. Havenage are leaving. I know. Peak runs a hand through their hair. I passed plenty of their members on the way down here. I thought if Eshe came anywhere, it'd be here. They glance around anxiously. I was taken away from the ship when I got back, and she'd taken it and gone. Then I saw the damage to the cordon. Peak looks at you with wild eyes. What if this is some kind of Havenage attempt to clear the flotilla, to scuttle the refugee ships? It isn't. Peak pauses. What do you know, Sleeper? There was a wave. Peak frowns. A wave? What do you mean? They pause to think. A signal that only affects electrical systems, maybe? An EMP would have taken out most of the station, but... Peak runs a hand through their hair. I don't know what you're saying, Sleeper. That doesn't sound... They look away down the corridor for a moment. Look, I have to find Eshe. I'm sure you felt something. We can talk about that later. They set off down the corridor. I can't sit around talking any longer. Find me on the flotilla. I'm gonna find a way to Eshe, no matter what. With that, they rush away into the depths of the cordon, leaving you behind. Seems like you'll need to follow if you want to get any answers. Yes, that is the thing I'm doing. Scrap for passage. You find a small shuttle scavenging supplies from the cordon to take it back to the flotilla. They'll take you 2 if you bring some scrap along. Okay, so I have 2 scrap. I can get more, so I'm going to go get more. Because this is the wastes. Plus 1, I have a 5. That turns it into a 6, which is a perfect hit. No risk of getting hurt. I'm going to use this as another... I'm going to see... I might need to... This might open a clock, and so I might want some dice to go with it. Okay, so that's the 2. You hand over the scrap and squeeze into the crowded shuttle. Time to head to the flotilla. So now I can go here. Okay, so this is the flotilla, refugee fleet. These folks all appeared during the episode Flux, which is the first of the 3 DLC episodes. We're now in number 2. Okay, so we have some repeatable actions. Haul supplies with Endure at +1, but it's dangerous. Getting the necessary supplies to each ship to meet their needs is a huge task. Joining the hauling teams is the simplest thing you can do to help. Or damage control. Interface at +2, it's only risky. The wave hits systems more than anything, especially those on the ships, so there's 1,000 tiny repair jobs to be done. So with a 3, I can turn it into a 5. Pretty good chance of success. So I get 2 ticks on Flotilla's friend. Shifting ships, systems, and social structures. The only way to navigate the flotilla is by rolling up your sleeves and helping out. The kind of action complete text says, you reboot a tanker's proximity controls, keeping it from drifting into other ships. The occupants are impressed and won't stop thanking you. Well, that's very nice. I'm going to go ahead and do one of these again, because I'm interface +2, I'm just better at that. This is the same text. Now I'm going to do my reroll for the day. That's a 3, turns into a 5. That fills 1 more clock, or 1 more tick. We need 3 to complete this clock. We're probably not going to do that with a 1. So I'm going to slide back. Oh, hey, this opens. Okay, so I can see Peak again, but first I'm going to go back and sunbathe, because I can't get a bad result under this. The minimum I can get is +1 energy. So that was the negative outcome, and I got +1 energy. I'm just going to lean back here so I don't hurt my head, or basically stress my neck. Peak. As you walk into the bay of the climbing briar, the familiarity of the space overcomes any trepidation. It feels good to be back, and the return feels earned, especially after all the work it took to figure out a route through the flotilla's jumble of ships that might lead you to the blue streak. This blue streak. You see Eshe and Peak immediately, sitting at the back of the bay, deep in conversation. Their closeness causes you to stop, suddenly aware that you might be interrupting something private. Peak is gesturing wildly as Eshe stares out into the middle distance, hunched over. As Peak tries to get her attention, she spots you. Sleeper. Eshe nods. Incredible work back there, she smiles. Sorry I couldn't wait for you in Peak, but the moment I saw the cordon go down, I had to get in here. Peak shakes their head. Leaping before looking, as usual. Peak smiles. But I'm glad we're all reunited. To be honest, Peak adds, I can't believe it. The Flux event knocked out the entire cordon system offline. The flotilla is free and Havenage are backing off. Peak smiles at you. You must be our good luck charm. Flux event? That's what the refugees are calling it. Peak explains. Apparently that's what they called it when it started happening around Ember. What exactly is happening? Hard to tell. It's some kind of disruptive wave that only affects electrical systems. Peak chips in. Typically systems are screened against radiation and interference, but this seems to be dulled, but not stopped, by those defenses. Basically, the crisis continues. The cord may be down, but this brings a whole other set of problems. Eshe paces away. You should tell them, Eshe. Peak glances at her. Please? Eshe doesn't respond. Tell you what? You stare back at her, waiting for a response. Please, Eshe, haven't they shown you they can be trusted? Peak nods toward you. Eshe turns, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She goes to start and then stops. Sorry, getting the ads. Thank you so much for the Prime sub, Mighty Mer. Yeah, I've heard kind of various bits of chatter about Twitch and how Twitch is running things, and I just hadn't been on Twitch running streams in a while, and so now as I'm getting back into the swing of things, I'll get a sense from folks how the pop-up ad situation is. I know when I'm watching VODs on Twitch, it'll just play audio of ads over the audio of the VOD. It's a stream rush because I'm back and people are here and they're being very kind. Thank you also to QCG Aaron for subscribing with Prime. I do have some emotes for subscribers. It looks like my Oreo wags his tail emote. It might be broken. It's supposed to be animated, but you do get this one. And the Solidarity Robot Fist. And then the Oreo tail wag is supposed to wag, but it's not wagging right now. Thank you both for the sub. Okay, so back here. Oh, it does wag for you. Good. Eshe turns, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She goes to start and then stops. You can see the anger in her eyes, but you realize it's not directed at you or anyone else. She's angry with herself. I brought weapons to the flotilla. She pauses. And now they're gone. I like to think of the writing job as being the writing up here, and then the typing here is like, that's just an interface question. I wish that I was a perfect typist. I am not. I got myself a split keyboard for ergonomics and stuff, and about a year later I still have a higher typo rate on this than I did on my old keyboard, but it's better for me. You suddenly remember the sleek crates that were tucked into the bay. I'm getting the notification for this, but not for anything else. Thank you so much for the follow. Looks like that was Dubious Collab. It's not the activity is not popping up over here, but thank you so much to the new follower. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mike. I tweet at Mike R. Underwood. I stream here at twitch.tv/turbotango. Mostly I am an author, and I am a co-host over at Speculate, an actual play show I do with the Rising Tides and Arvin Elleron, aka Brandon O'Brien and Gregory A. Wilson. So Fractal Spire is now done. I'll have to update that command. But yeah, we do those things. I have been moving into game design as well, but right now I'm working on a near future romantic comedy novel that has been a lot of fun to write, and it's nice to have it be a more positive experience because the world has been a lot. So that's a quick catch up for me. I'm only 7,000 words in, so there's not a lot of it yet. Not a lot to it yet. I appreciate the vote of confidence. I may check in with you on email in terms of what availability you might have to be able to give early feedback. But as you might know, for me, as I'm hoping it is for you, positive all caps response of interest are very validating to me as a writer. You suddenly remember the sleek crates that were tucked into the bay, marked with a yellow sigil. The ones Eshe told you were just supplies. What do you mean gone? What do you think? Ashe snaps. Someone lifted them from the ship's bay while I was unloading the supplies. She sniffs. At least they're in the hands of the flotilla now. Peak looks at you. She knows this was a bad move, Sleeper, I promise you. They glance back at her. She's just too proud to admit it. So what now? Peak looks at Eshe. She finds them and she gets them back. Shouldn't we help? Oh. Also working on rom-coms, then yes, we should talk. I will do that thing. Eshe turns. It's okay, Sleeper. I don't want anyone getting mixed up in this. This is my responsibility. She looks away. But there wouldn't be much of a video game if I didn't get involved in this. The DLC would just be kind of a... It would unfold in front of me and I wouldn't have much to do. Plus, Peak adds, you and I have work to do. I want to understand the Flux, Sleeper, to study it. Peak's eyes light up. This thing is changing the entire system, causing problems across the inner system, driving refugees off Ember's moons, and now it's here. If we don't do something about it, Peak pauses. It's a problem for all of us. I can see more immediate problems, Eshe sniffs. Peak ignores her. I've been looking at the networks, and when the Flux event hit it, it changed things. It shuffled systems, corrupted nodes, broke open data stores. They take out a slate and show you a flickering polygon. Some of these Flux nodes have appeared near the epicenter of the event, but I can't get access. You, however, I saw the way you worked with data when we were preparing for the run. I think you can get into these things. I want you to find a Flux node and bring me anything you can extract. They come and go, but most can be found in the barely functioning networks of the wastes. Peak pauses. Start there. How do they draw every damn character to be sexy across the whole spectrum? Good question. All of these characters are amazing, amazing character design. Who... I'm Citizen. I'm trying to remind myself of the artist. Who did the character art for Citizen Sleeper? It looks like it is... Guillaume Singelin. Yes, Guillaume, you did a hell of a job. All this art is amazing. Rom-coms, rom-coms, rom-coms. Fingers crossed for rom-com domination, rom-com amazingness for everyone. So, that is the text I was just reading. Perhaps together we can find something that might point us to what the Flux is and where it comes from. How will that help? Peak runs a hand through their hair. I don't know, Sleeper. Maybe we can't do anything, but I want to know what this thing is. Eshe looks indignant. Don't waste too much time chasing ghosts, Sleeper. There are people on this flotilla that need any help they can get. I'm sure the Sleeper can do both, Eshe. Peak smiles at you. I'll see you here when you have something. Good hunting. And then they wave you out as Eshe stomps away to make plans of her own. Okay, so we have a drive. Study the Flux. Climbing Briar is... Okay, so this is where Peak and Eshe are. This is where I can help on the flotilla in general. And then here, I'm guessing here is where I would find nodes. Here we go, Flux node. Okay, so I need to be able to match this. But I can't do that right now. So we're gonna go back to base camp and end cycle. Oof, that's a lot of energy down. Okay, I'm gonna sunbathe to get some energy here. Good. And then I'm going to switch to this. I can't do that. because a 4 or a 5 will work since I have interface +2. Bypass. Extract data. +1 flux data. Okay. Do I only need 1 flux data? Well, let's find out. Input 1 flux data. Peak asks you to help them extract data from a node in the wastes, one that appeared after the recent flux event. Can do. Peak receives the data on their slate and begins to work decoding it immediately. So I'm guessing this is going to be a clock? No. Okay. Immediate chatting. Sleeper, come look at this. Peak is poring over one of the displays of the makeshift decoding suite they have set up in the Climbing Briars cargo bay. On the screen, a clump of data pathways, like an ingrown root ball, has started to untangle. I don't remember root ball. This is an existing node corrupted by the flux event. It's totally twisted up. They glance at you to check you are listening. But inside, you watch as the unwinding pathways leave behind patterns of negative spaces, like shadows staying behind despite their caster leaving. It's a whole other data set inside. Peak's eyes shine bright in the pale screen light. The flux event somehow seeds this data deep in the gaps in the node, wrapping them around it. What's in there? Not sure, Peak frowns. It isn't being very cooperative. Hey, thank you for the follow, Trimblekea. I'm curious that my activity feed is not showing these follows. But it is showing up on my thing. Ah, that's because you're a spammer. Sorry. Just a moment here. Why can't I do that? Where's my mod button? Just a second, sorry. No. All right, I'm just gonna clear the stream history real quick, or the chat history. Boom, and that should reset. Okay, thank you for kind of pushing that off of the page. The kids are asleep in Mighty Mer. I'm gonna have to figure out how to get my moderating tools back. I don't remember where they went. Users in chat. I guess I have to do this one. All right. Now we're back on. Isn't being very cooperative. You watch the screen, the pattern of shadows becoming obvious now as each layer of pathways is pulled away. The flux event itself really did a number on unprotected nodes like this one. Most of the eyed systems are screened against radiation interference, but these exposed nodes? Peak makes a ripping motion with their hands. Torn apart. Peak points to a thick tangle of threads on the screen. Look, here. It looks like it's been tangled purposefully, but it's actually all the points within the node have been randomly rearranged. It's as if the node was a bag of ball bearings and the flux shook them. The pathways tried to account for the rearrangement once the system came back on, hence the tangle. Peak pauses as the node continues to unwind. Although, Peak muses, it was less like shaking a bag of ball bearings and more like making them all simultaneously occupy a superposition of every possible position in the bag before logging them back in the new configuration. They smile sheepishly. But that's a technicality. So what is the flux? We know it is a wave, one with exotic effects. That's all. Peak runs a hand through their hair. The question is not so much what flux is, but what's causing it? Where is it coming from? Peak turns away from the screen, meeting your eye. And there's something else. They pause. Have you spoken with the refugees? Not yet. You should. Peak lowers their voice instinctively. What they're reporting, massive systems failure, cascading collapses of life support, of terraforming systems, total data corruption. Peak swallows. The flux shouldn't do that. It can fundamentally rearrange the structure of systems, especially those poorly shielded, but totally collapsing heavy-duty industrial systems, fail-safes and all? That doesn't make sense. Those kinds of systems are built for deep space, for solar flares and radiation. The flux might penetrate them, but any reconfiguration should have been reparable. Peak looks back at the screen, where the decoding load lies almost fully open. A shadow pattern of the negative spaces that existed within its scrambled interior darkens the screen, like a set of bruises showing the pattern of the object that made them. I need to look into something. I have an idea of what might be causing this wave, triggering the flux, but I need time to research it. Can I help? Peak shakes their head. I'm sorry, Sleeper, but I want to keep this to myself for now. If you need something to do, the flotilla could surely use the help. From what I heard from Eshe, things are tense there. I'll look into it. Good. Peak sounds distracted. Give me some time, Sleeper. Peak turns back to their console. I'll have some answers soon enough, I hope. You take one last glance at the uncoiling node as you leave. The dark shapes it leaves behind, somehow troubling. You try to shake them from your mind. There are things to be done elsewhere. Okay, so the clock for Peak working on stuff. I can do my reroll. That 6 is going to help somewhere. 2, 2. So these have the same effects. My rolls are better. Let's do pulse applies because we haven't done it before, just to get different text. You run some water out to a struggling farming ship on the flotilla's edge. They are so pleased they reward you with some freshly cooked produce. Hey, that's nice. We need one more tick. We have a 1 here. Losing energy is not a problem here as the downside, so I'd love to fill this clock now, because there's probably another NPC. You work on the life support of the biggest tanker, expanding capacity and opening up more bays and bulkheads to move refugees into. So now we have filled this clock. And here's a new person. Saul, pragmatic captain. See, I wish they would show me the person before I have to start doing the voice, because I don't know what voice to do. Someone told me I should be thanking you. The voice comes from behind you, cutting through the chaos of the crowded, cavernous bay. You freeze. Don't be afraid now, I've been hunting you, sure, but for all the best reasons. You turn to see bright eyes set in a rough face, framed in rusted metal. Saul. He holds out his hand, the other clamped firmly around a knotted wooden cane. Shake his hand. He grips you firmly with a heavy and calloused hand. Forgive me, as soon as I saw you, I knew who you were. Saul puts a hand on your shoulder. I've been told a Sleeper was part of that supply run that came in several cycles ago. He nods. A very welcome act, and we all thank you for it. Pragmatic refugee leader. It's like a sword, maybe a little bit of an exoskeleton. This may just be like a repair engineering rig, right, with the extra arm. And then this might be for interior ZOG repairs. And you have this framework around to keep yourself from bonking your head. I don't know. Walk with me, Sleeper. Saul sets off through the bay, his partial suit hissing and creaking as it helps carry him through the busy crowds. You notice people making way for you and Saul, standing back and letting you pass. You pass a makeshift kitchen, steaming pots of heating elements, a restless queue collecting meals. That algae that came through isn't exactly a full meal, but with what we have here, we've been able to make it work. You see a ladle of greenish stew dished out. Color is something, isn't it? Saul smiles. Saul leads you out of the larger bay, into a corridor lined with storage rooms that are now serving as dorms. You see someone filling a metal container from a standpipe, the water gushing out readily. Saul nods to the person as he passes. Just a little further now. Saul leads you into a freight elevator and whistles to some unseen operator to start it up. It jerks to life, and as you pass through the layers of the ship, you see people on every level, supplies crammed into every available space, and sparks leaping in bursts as the ship is reshaped and modified to sustain its population. If Havenage were expecting an exodus from the flotilla, the Flux event sure has put a stop to that. Saul stretches. Some have crossed the eye, but many just to gather salvage or score a hot meal. So the pressure on our supplies is shrinking, but not like I'd hoped. With the Flux reaching all the way out here, people are starting to understand that our journey might not be over. Saul stares grimly ahead. Suddenly, the freight elevator screeches to a halt, and Saul leads you slowly out into a wide room of chairs and terminals, ringed by a mezzanine with a glass roof above, showing the distant hub and the far curve of the eye beyond. The people at the terminals nod to him as he enters. This is your ship? Saul nods. That's right. The Pilgrim Seed is mine to care for. He leads you up to a railed platform at the center of the room and stops. She chose me, so to speak. Well, at least her crew did, and I do my best to serve him. Saul looks around the bridge of the ship, a pained expression on his face. I'll admit that the responsibility isn't one that suits me, though we rarely get to choose such things. He glances back at you. But you, Sleeper, from what I understand, you chose to try to help us here. Is that right? I did my best to. Saul nods silently. But I have to ask you, Sleeper, why are you here now? Saul leans back, and you feel his eyes on you, assessing you. The Flux event. I'd appreciate the honesty. I had figured as much. Saul flexes the shoulder that is free of the suit. Looking at you now, I can see that an event like that, well, would have a big impact. He smiles a half smile. I have thousands of people here on the Pilgrim Seed, Sleeper, and there's thousands more out in the flotilla. He leans against a railing. A lot of them are looking to me to provide some future for them, some path out of this dead end we've gotten into. And this cycle, this very cycle, the thing we've been running away from, just caught up with us. So these people are scared, Sleeper, and they're looking to me for reassurance. And then, on the same cycle, someone tells me they see you on board, a Sleeper, the same Sleeper, they reckon, that wanted so strongly to send a ship past the cordon to see us. Saul scratches at his beard. So the first thing I wanted to do was thank you for that, for your interest. He pauses. But the second thing I wanted to do was find out what you want from us. Saul's suit hisses and creaks. I think that's fair, don't you? Saul takes a deep breath. So what is it? Tell me about the Flux. Someone at the terminal calls out to Saul, and he shouts some orders back. He turns to you. Apologies. He smiles that half smile. I tell you what, Sleeper. Let's you and me make a deal. You want information? I understand that. But I have a list of needs longer than the rim of the eye itself. He grimaces. So you do some things for me, and then we can talk about what's been happening in this system, and I'll answer all your questions and then some. I may be the captain of the Pilgrim Seed, and she's certainly the biggest ship in the flotilla, but I'm not the only captain here. We have ships here from each of the moons. We're from Ember's Hearth, there's others from Ember's Song, and even Ember's Step. The moons have been in each other's throats, Sleeper. What with the pressure of the Flux, the bad blood from the old days, Saul leans in. We aren't exactly all in alignment. What I need is a way to stop those things escalating. Stop things from escalating. Or I guess they are already escalating. For the crews on those ships and their captains to feel happy and comfortable enough to forget old rivalries and past crimes. He flinches at something. Those from Ember's Step, well, they've always been proud, but that pride seems to be a barrier to compromise right now. The last set of supplies I sent their way, they refused. Meanwhile, I have a supply shuttle at the docking access the Ember's Song ships gather at. But they've taken far too many cycles to unload. Maybe if you're headed that way, you can look in on them. I'm no politician, Sleeper, but if I don't... Saul stops. He leans back and flexes, his suit screeching. He groans a little, and you see the weight of the flotilla sitting on his shoulders, the suit the only thing keeping him vertical beneath all that pressure. Look, you'll see for yourself if you go. Meet the other Sleeper. See what they need. Keep them aligned. He speaks through the pain, his voice clipped. Are you okay? Not really, but as long as this thing holds, he grimaces. I hope. Saul grits his teeth. You are what you appear to be, Sleeper. He smiles, his half smile, despite the pain. Because I'm not sure I can take any more bad news. Plus, there's plenty to be done here on the Pilgrim Seed, too, if you have a moment to pitch in. Never enough around here. That's something I've learned the hard way. Saul settles onto his cane, the pain visibly receding. All right, I have 1,000 things to attend to now, Sleeper, so you'll have to find your own way out. With that, Saul sits at his terminal with slow and careful movements. You head back down in the freight elevator, and as you do, you see again the layers and layers of chaotic life this vessel, and all the vessels of the flotilla, hold. Okay, so more stuff to do. So a refugee on from Ember's Step, and then a docking access for Ember's Song. We are out of things. We have a new drive. Flotilla support. Okay. Oh, hey, look. Food. I have some of that. Food is an issue on the Pilgrim Seed, even with agriculture on board. The supply of matsutake will help fill the gap. You hand over the matsutake to those working the canteen. They are very grateful. So I need more of that. So we can Pilgrim Seed support with Intuit. Even Saul's own ship requires help, but figuring out what jobs need doing first and who to help is a challenge. Hearth survival. Whether Eshe got her supplies through the cordon or not, Pilgrim Seed and Hearth refugees on it desperately need help. So I think this clock is starting as full as it is because Eshe got the supplies through. I think if in the previous episode she hadn't gotten through, this clock would not be anywhere near as full as it is. But there's still, what, maybe 12 spots? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So maybe 10 spots remaining. And then Step, Song, and Hearth. Stability in the flotilla means relieving the pressure on the refugees from all 3 moons of Ember. So that's probably 1 tick per ship, or 1 tick per moon origin, would be my guess. And we can go meet Aki, and we can go to docking access. So here we need to unload supplies with Endure. But that is that. Let's leave Aki for another day. I should, when I go on break, I should go get myself like a ginger beer or a ginger ale for doing all this talking. Just checking texts in case something is important. And there was a somewhat important but not urgent thing. Make sure that this is all looking good. Great. So back here, complete active scenes. So I do need to go talk to Aki. Flotilla ship, a ship in the refugee flotilla. It's a strange sight, given your time spent in the Greenway, to see a greenhouse choked in red dust. It piles up along edges, gathers in curving waves, and is carried by some unseen wind to whirl in front of the glass ceiling. It is a desert in miniature, a captured landscape of iron-rich sediment and unseen life. Beautiful, isn't it? The remark comes from another figure standing at the viewing window, so quietly you hadn't noticed them. Did they just arrive, or were they here before you were? Their cloth-swaddled form reveals little. It is. They say nothing. You catch a glimpse of a pale face among the thick material, dark eyes glittering in the red reflected light. They turn to you as the dust swirls. Aki. They smile a tight smile. You are not from the flotilla, am I right? I live on the Eye. But that is not where you are from. She stares into the greenhouse. Everyone is from somewhere, whether they wish to be or not. The red dust glitters in their eyes, whether it is a good place to be from or not. Aki gathers her cloak around her shoulders against the cold. What brings you to the wind's long shadow? Saul sent me. Aki doesn't respond. She looks absent-mindedly at the dust. You are a strange one. Aki raises an eyebrow. I don't know whether to report you or send you back where you came from. She smiles to herself, which is nowhere at all. You glance around the empty corridor, suddenly aware of how quiet it is on the ship. Unlike the other ships you've been on the flotilla, other ships you have been on the flotilla, yeah, I think there should be a 2 here. There is a silent order to the wind's long shadow, and in this moment it feels unsettling. What happened here? Aki squints. That is a broad question, and I am not in the mood to recount the history of the ship or step. Aki lets the silence sit, and you hear the window and dust scratching at the viewing window. You hear a creak as a set of shutters slowly begin to close across the glass ceiling of the greenhouse. As you watch, you feel the dissonance this place has with the world. There is nothing green here, a dust house perhaps. It takes many systems to preserve this landscape, Aki begins, to simulate the wind, cycle the dust, layer the sand and dirt beneath. You watch the dust swirling, systems that are failing. The flux event, Aki glances at you for a sign of recognition at the term, is eroding our ability to keep this place alive, to keep these traces of step alive. She smiles to herself. Which is ironic because when we left step, the flux had eroded our ability to survive on the moon. Now the situation is reversed. Away from the moon, its ecosystems are as fragile as we were, living upon it. Something catches your eye as the shutters darken the dust house. The winds picking away at the dunes begin to reveal something, a web, a network of thick branching forms, and then they close completely, and you see nothing in the dark. Soft blue lights flicker on the corridor, uplighting Aki in cold cyan. You've piqued my curiosity, but I'm so tired. Aki shivers. If you do not have a purpose here on the ship, I recommend finding one. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave. You'll need to leave. Make yourself useful, and perhaps we can get another chance to talk. She turns. I would like that. With that, Aki pads away along the corridor. You stand for a moment in front of the dark dust house, trying to imagine the network of roots under the sand and dust, and then trying to imagine the moon that once housed them. Okay, so there's things to do here. Systems repair. Make yourself useful. And that's stuff to do here. Scene's complete. We sleep now. Okay. So, scrap. So I need to get the other type of mushrooms. Germinate spores. So let's do all this, and then it'll start growing mushrooms. So now there'll be a clock for that to germinate. And here... Oh wow, that's all of those rolls are bad. So let's do 3, 5. Okay, so we're getting Girol, but that's not the one that we need. So now we're going to go here. So you need to unload thing, right? So endure. Saul's shipment of supplies sits partially unloaded, the crew absent. If you want to help, the best way would be to finish the job. Okay, we'll lose some energy, but the clock does advance. Let's try to finish this clock in the next couple of days. We got 2 more. Someone comes to help you unload for a while, making the work go quicker. When you ask their name, they ignore you. What's going on? Alright, we're going to leave this because I need some status. Actually, I should be able to go and buy food, shouldn't I? if I take the ferry over. Because I'm good on money. Get some from Memphis. Matsutake I need for the other people. So I'm going to input some cryo to get emphasis spiced fungus. Nice, and that fills up our energy. So now we're going to go back across and see if that 2 can become anything. Let's see, this is something I get a +2. You are working. This is also something I can do at +2 and intuit, plus it's safe. You join in with a team of Sauls who are going floor to floor offering assistance. The time goes quickly and the work well. So we got a couple more survival ticks. We don't have the Matsutake, and looks like Clubhead and Girol are not useful at this moment. I'm gonna... So I'll need scrap to keep up my condition. I do have stabilizer, but it feels like a little bit of a waste to use stabilizer just for a couple of bits. But I do want to make progress on all these as quickly as I can, in case there's like hidden timers. There's usually not hidden timers. So I'll just have to look for visible timers. So let's go here. This is +1. That becomes perfect. Same result thing. Well, let's do another perfect hit, and it should finish this clock. Docking access. Ember Song Flotilla. There's a loose crowd around the supplies you've unloaded, and a tense mood brewing among them. You sit nearby, on the edge of the shuttle's docking tunnel, resting. Further away, crews from Ember's Song continue their lives as usual, coming and going, trading, discussing. There's a quiet efficiency to the hub, set up as common space for the swarm of small ships from Ember's Song that are part of the flotilla. Unlike Hearth or Steppe, there's no one capital ship for this moon's refugees, just a mass of individuals traveling in concert. We told Hearth we don't want their scraps. A jeering voice comes out of the small crowd nearby. You turn to see a gaunt, pale man wearing the industrial work gear you've seen many of the Song refugees wearing. You hear me? These supplies are to help. He smirks. Oh, how noble of you, coming out here to help us singers. There's a rumble of anger around the crowd. We agreed to join the flotilla for joint protection. We did not agree to Ember's Hearths, using the flotilla to secure their control of the moons. You realize Petter is addressing the crowd as much as he is addressing you. With the cordon down, our crews are more than able to acquire what is needed from the Eye, what is owed as restitution for keeping us restrained. He pats one of the crates you unloaded. What we need, we will take. Saul wants to cooperate. Saul is a farmer. Even the people of Song know that he was ready. He was simply the sole survivor of Hearth's leadership. His authority means nothing. Patra looks around the crowd. Hearth think they can buy us, but we remember the past. A rumble of agreement runs through the crowd. He smiles at them. Take the supplies if you wish, of course. We're not wasteful. Petra approaches you directly. The crowd tentatively moves forward, and by the time he reaches you, they are already dragging away crates and distributing the contents. I'm not one for shooting the messenger, Sleeper, says Petter as he approaches. But we cannot concede to Hearth here, not for a moment. I don't understand. I can see that. Petter sits behind you on the docking tunnel's lip. What was your plan, Sleeper? Unload the supplies and wait for someone to start throwing them back at you? He nods at the crowd, rifling through the crates, because that was about what to happen. Not sure about that. Petter shrugs. What do you think happened to the crew of this shuttle? He shakes his head. They were chased out of this place. What's happening here? We are maintaining our independence. He smiles. Do you know anything about Ember's moon, Sleeper? Or are you planning to wander into this flotilla totally ignorant? An objective outsider offering help? He rolls his eyes. I know a little. A little is the same as nothing. I'm going to assume you know the basics. The gas giant Ember has 7 moons. 3 biggest are Ember's Step, Ember's Song, and Ember's Heart. He winks. We can cover the 4 sisters next session. Step was first to be settled. A contract old Solheim gave to the terraformers Cybele Systems when they first claimed the Helion system. That's way back when. Step was a testing ground, and like most testing grounds, it didn't turn out too well. Partial atmosphere slowly sloughing off each orbit, a dysfunctional ecosystem, and a whole load of dust-clogged settlers. The place is a miserable desert, long past its best before day. So Cybele moved to Heart, where they'd redoubled their efforts. The subsurface ocean, and some balmy tidal heating helped, allowing them to build a real atmosphere, a real habitable world. A fact that the typical Hearth colonist won't ever let you forget. How did Cybele achieve such a thing, you might wonder? That's where we come in. It's the same old rule of surrogacy, the one humanity built our universe around. Petra claps a hand to his chest in mock pride. My moon, Ember Song, is a sulfur-soaked rock covered in volcanoes, tidally heated by its inner orbit to sweltering temperatures. Exactly the kind of crucible you need to fuel a terraforming project. Energy, industry, fuel. Song provided the raw materials for Hearth. Peter grimaces. Willingly or not. And a crucible requires people to run it, us singers, born into a flaming pit and asked to stoke it so others might live in a paradise in the making. That's what we had to endure until Solheim brought everything down. Peter. I'm going to say Petter because there's no second E. Petter rattles off his speech from memory, and you wonder how many times he's delivered it. No Solheim, no contract, no Cybele, and no Cybele means 3 moons suddenly independent. Petter shakes his head. It was a war sleeper, sometimes hot, sometimes cold, and unsurprisingly Hearth and Step came out better than us. Yet, Petter holds up a hand. They need us, sleeper, always have. And so we're the linchpin, we're the center around which the moons orbit, not swirling ember. We've resisted takeovers, sieges, and expansions, and now we'll resist this. Half the people on these ships think the flux was caused by Hearth, intentionally or otherwise, and I have to say, some cycles I agree. Before you come here to hand out supplies like a good soldier, maybe educate yourself. What does that matter now? Petter shakes his head. Do you forgive some crimes against yourself so easily, sleeper? Would you return to the bottom of SNARP if they sent someone to collect? Petter stares at the crowd. Don't presume to judge us. I want you to imagine what it's like to try to live on an airless, volcanic rock when every system that sustains you starts shutting down. He spits and wipes a sleep across his mouth. We abandoned nothing. Some stayed, others left. But we will reclaim Ember as soon as the flux fades or ends. We've weathered worse. I mean, you do need the supplies. As I said, we'll take what we need when we need it. Petter stares out into the Axis. There's no authority that we recognize here. We're going to just take whatever shit we want because something. That was me editorializing. I won't keep you from the docking axis, sleeper. No one here has the authority for that. But watch yourself here. Try to remember the eye is just another in the long list of people who've tried to control us. You are too stubborn, that's true. Petter nods. Then let it guide your actions. Petter sighs. Look, we have many needs. Ships come to this docking axis for repair, for requisitions, for friendship. You can provide those as well as any singer. If you want to help in your own name, sleeper, not that of Hearth. Petter shakes his head. Carry that name here and you'll lose all trust. But as we are, be as we are. Act in your own name alone. Petter puts a hand on your shoulders and stands. Hope I didn't just waste my time here, sleeper. And with that, he walks away, back to the shrinking crowd that is distributing the last of the supplies among the crews present. You watch them pass the food and water between them. No signs of conflict between the crews, just a careful distribution of resources. Petter chats with a few crews, each of them casting looks in your direction, ones that reveal little about the singer's intentions. You stand. It seems the tensions on the flotilla run much deeper than you expected. This won't be easy. I did not expect it would be easy because... So, you need spores, and you need a ship mind. Okay. complete systems repair. Let's get that started. Okay. You notice a bug at the wind cycling system and manage to fix it. Aki gives you a knowing look. It seems like you are proving yourself. Let's re-roll that 1. 3 plus 2 becomes 5, so it's another risky roll. Same thing. Now we're at 4 of 8 on make yourself useful. So I'm gonna go across to the rim and see if there are ships docked here that will sell me things. Data. Board exchange. So I can make a ship mine with 3 fragments. And let's buy scrap. So we have a fair bit of money. Got a ship mine fragment. It's very good. Okay. So that's all that we are allowed to buy from this ship. And then there's something over here. Okay. The ship will be back next day. Office. Okay. So that was useful. Back to here. Okay. So we're down to 3 status. So I should buy some food from Memphis. Okay. So if I use scrap, it's not going to get me the 5th die back. Fungal growth. Okay. And base camp. We have 2 ship mine fragments, 1 more, and we could maybe assemble a ship mine for the singers, which would be lovely. Let's go see if a ship has arrived over here. They have. Merchant freighter, ship mine fragment. Don't mind if I do. So that's 3. Ship is gone. So now we're going to go to the Ort Fabricator, where we input 3 ship mine fragments, and we can fabricate a ship mine. Boom. That's very good. Then we go across again. Shroomies are still growing. We go all the way out here, and you need a ship mine. One of the Singer crews is looking for a ship mine to replace their flux-damaged core. Maybe you can help them acquire one. I can. Boom. You supplied the ship mine, but in a way that seemed to only make the crew more suspicious of you. Well, where'd you get a ship mine from? Why are you being so nice? That kind of stuff. Okay, let's do systems repair. 4 becomes a 6. Perfect hit. Same result thing here. Let's finish this clock. So we can talk to Aki again there. You need the shroomies. And you need those, so we'll talk to Aki. I see you've been contributing. Aki stands next to you at the dust house window. I was unsure what to expect when we joined the flotilla on its voyage to the Eye, but after the journey across the system, then the quarantine, and then the flux reaching all the way out here too. Aki stops herself. Thank you. She bows a little. The other ships have only been interested in sending us supplies. We grow all we need. She gestures to the dust house. What the dust houses need, that's the problem that concerns us. She smiles and turns to you. Shall we go inside? Into the dust house? Where else? She taps away at a panel by the window. It seems only fair that after your help with the support systems, you get to see what it is that you are maintaining. Aki leads you to an opening beside the window. You pass through a dark changing room. You notice Aki is sliding on an oxygen mask on visor. She looks at the swirling dust inside. Inside is just like Ember's step. Thin atmosphere, constant dust storms. Nothing that will bother you. She passes your mask. The dust isn't exactly pleasant to inhale, however, so take this. You hold it to your face. She leads you through a short decontamination tunnel with its fizzing panels of purifying light, and then through into the dust house. Immediately the wind and the heat hits you. You feel the rough waves of dust scattering across your face and peer through the amber murk. Your feet slide on shifting piles of stand. Welcome to Step, or an emulation of it at least. Aki's voice sounds distant, echoey. The terraforming process only managed to provide limited atmosphere around the moon, one in which is slowly escaping. It's been like that since I was born, so I got used to the idea. You catch her bright eyes through the amber dust. So did everything else that lives here. You feel something hard beneath your feet, beneath the sand, like a coil of rope. What is under the sand? This is steppe silk. Like it's one of the plants we established on Steppe. She kicks away some red sand. Like any bast fiber, it can be retted and woven into clothes. I'm wearing some made from myself. It's one of the many species adapted to steppe since the Solheim collapse, which is why it must be preserved. She stares out into the swirling dust. It is as much a refugee as we are, and the dust houses hold hundreds of other species. You look at the pale, unassuming root, threaded thickly through the sand. Aki watches you silently. Had enough? It'll be easier to speak outside. Aki leads you back through the decontamination tunnel, which blasts the dust from both of you with a burst of metallic-tasting air, and into the changing room. Aki hangs up both masks, patiently awaiting your questions. What happened on Ember's step? Aki pauses, pulling her shawl around you. She looks small and pale inside the layers. Steppe was already a doomed world. She sniffs. When Solheim gave the terraforming contract to Cybele, they believed they could build an atmosphere. But the moon's erratic orbit made it impossible to maintain. By the time of the Solheim collapse, the atmosphere was already fading, and Cybele's attention was on Ember's hearth. After the collapse, Cybele fell too, its researchers scattered across the moons, and any central organization lost. Since then, my parents' generation worked tirelessly to survive, to adapt what we had to the failing moon, the steppe silk on the other adapted species, and are the life's work of the steppes colonies. So when the flux started to collapse our computer systems, corrode and destroy our life support, our water supply, our agriculture, we had to leave. Aki sits heavily on a nearby bench. Soon the only traces of steppe will be on this ship. Aki begins to cry quietly. You're unsure what to do. Sit beside her. You sit on the bench beside her as she sobs. You understand why this ship, why the refugees from Steppe are so different. Their world was already dying when the flux arrived. Ember Steppe is a terraformed moon, A partial atmosphere, established colonies, agriculture. And yet when the flux event started, its people had to leave. You think of the eye and the delicate web of decaying systems it rests upon. What hope does a ruined station have against a wave that corrupts, corrodes, and collapses? Aki interrupts your thoughts, rubbing her eyes. Not everyone left. There wasn't room to take all the people and fill the dust houses. My parents, their friends, and many others stayed. She sniffs. We carry the step for them. Perhaps there is hope. We learn not to talk of hope on a dying world. There is meaning for them and any future they can build with the time they have. She stands up. I wanted you to understand the importance of these dust houses, of what they contain. She leads you back out into the corridor. If the flux events continue to reach out to the eye, we need to build protections to ensure their safety. Aki meets your eye. I can help. Aki smiles weakly. I knew it. You will be welcome in the wind's long shadow, whenever you wish. These dust houses are already decaying. I have seen it. She stares into the dust. We had thought they would last longer, but that last flux event. Help us. Aki looks at you. Please. I will. When you are ready, we will begin the preparations for reinforcing the dust houses. We need to be ready for the next event. Aki's eyes shine with the last of her tears. She takes a breath. I will see you soon. Aki drifts away down the corridor, leaving you alone once more at the viewing window, watching the ragged, delicate traces of the moon known as Emperor's Step. Okay. What do I do here? Step silk care, dust house shielding. So I need spores and energy. Actually, let's do the spores first, because then I can reroll my 2. Nope, not stealing. Collect spores. Okay, we got 2 of those. Reroll to 6. Because we need 3 spores for the ship. This one, right? Okay. Spores. One of the ships is trying to establish a mushroom farm to help feed the crews. They're looking for spores to get them started. I got that. Ta-da! As Petter said, the singers will only trust you if you act independently of Hearth. Fulfilling supply requests is a good start. As you cross the axis, looking for a shuttle to take you back to the ruined cordon, you spot Petter, standing at the edge of a central hub. Something about the way he is leaning against the rail, looking down across the axis and toward the blinking lights of the flotilla beyond, makes you pause. He's completely still, his head drooping low and his shoulders hunched high. Approach him. You lean on the railing a little away from him, leaving a gap between you. This close you can see the blank stare in his eyes, the way his hands hang limply in front of him. It takes a minute to notice you. Sleeper. He inhales sharply. Still hanging around? Trying to be useful. Petter smiles a tight smile, but doesn't turn to face you. That a sleeper thing? Needing to be useful? It's a me thing. It would make sense. Petter closes his eyes. Tools need to be used. When you refuse to take the bait, he turns away, looking out across the docking axis once more. He loosens his jaw, the tension leaking out of him like radiation. You wait. After a while, he speaks. I'm tired, Sleeper. I'm tired of everything. I'm tired of the empty paternalism of Hearth. I'm tired of the paranoid whining of the crews. I'm tired of endless cycles that look the same, smell the same, feel the same. I'm tired of hiding, of running, of fixing every shitty thing that breaks out here. His shout echoes a little in the hub, but few stop to look. He looks down at his feet. I get it. Petter nods. I'm sorry, Sleeper, he sighs. Something is... I don't feel okay. Just tired, I think. Really tired. He stands. I'm gonna go. He looks at you and sniffs. Get some sleep. Sleep well. Petter nods slowly, turning away. He raises a hand and drifts away toward the center of the hub. You turn back to the railing, not wanting to watch him go. Seeing him like this, you prefer not to stare. Traffic of the Axis rumbles on as you watch, under an endlessly shining sun. The same air recycled through all these lungs, the same dust gathering speck by speck on the windows. You take a sharp breath, stand straight, and get moving, before the inertia of it all gets to you. So, more things, getting to know people. That is actions. You need actions as well, yes? Did I... Nope, none of those are drives. Just clocks. Clocks, clocks, clocks. Just gonna check and make sure that I'm not getting Discord notifications that are important and urgent. And the answer is no. Okay. That's another cycle down. Okay. It is 1:25. I'm going to take a break here and go get myself a beverage that will help my throat. But if it doesn't, we may only run until about 4. It's 3:25 my time. Because it may be smarter to spread this out into like 3 2-hour streams instead of trying to go for 3 hours and change for a game that involves me talking a lot and trying to do voices. So I'm going to put my break card up. I would encourage you to take a break while I am taking one to do whatever it is that will make your day healthier, take care of yourself, and I'll see you back in a few minutes for more Citizen Sleeper Flux. Where's my break? got myself a ginger beer. It's better than nothing. Okay. So, we need some energy, for sure. Let's do that and see how much we get. 2 is good. Then on 3 dice, you need things and you need actions. Let's go check on the mushrooms. They may have finished growing. Nope. Right? Because you're still growing. Okay. So we're just gonna help people out. Let's do some for you too. Yeah. So, this is safe. I'm gonna go. Well, I've got these good dice. Let's go do things that are dangerous. Aki has devised upgrades that will protect the dust houses from both flux and their slow decay. She needs you to implement them. You work inside a dust house, layering the internal walls with careful plating. The rattle of the dust becomes a comforting backdrop. And we do step silk care. Improving the dust houses isn't the only way to sustain the step silk. With intuitive care, the plant can be made more resistant. With remarkable intuition, you not only support the step silk, but harden it. Aki smiles when she sees the result. Okay. And then let's do one of these clocks. Socialize. On a 6, we can do whatever. You take a handful of jobs and work through them, sharing tips and chatting with the crews. You can feel them warming to you. So, we'll fill this up and the people will like us, at least a little bit. But that is all she clocked. Days go quickly when you have lots of things to do and no dialogue to complete. Alright, let's go ahead and use a stabilizer, which fills us all the way back up, so the next few days we'll get 5 dice. And are you done now? Yay, it's done! Okay, we're looking for Matsutake. That's Jiro. There's one Matsutake. Let's see what one will do. Okay. +2 Earth survival. You hand over the Matsutake to those working the canteen. They are very grateful, so that helps here. We're 3/4 full on Hearth survival. So that is probably fine for now. Let's go here. With a 6, we can do anything. Dangerous, that's +2. This one is +3, so let's go for the greater impact. So that we're about 2/3 full on that one. But we will need energy. So it's time to go and buy some tasty mushroom dish and then check and see what other things we can buy. You let me buy a ship mind. And then this one is coming. Do we need food? We can buy rations here. energy. Condition good. And so now instead of 3 dice, I'm back up to 5, which will help me complete the clocks much faster. So there's Peak. Let's see what Peak has to say. Have you ever heard of KAN channels, Sleeper? Peak asks as soon as you enter the bay, as if you were in the middle of the conversation. There are heavy circles under their eyes, and you aren't sure they've moved since you last visited. The console they're working at seems to have grown too, shadowing their slight frame in a wealth of screens and wires. KAN, you mean for transit? Yes, exactly. Peak turns to face you. Keomani's active negation, the name of the effect used to transport trillions of tons of materials from the surrogate systems to the core. You might have heard of it in your physics classes. At XPR, they hammered the principles into us as kids. KAN. Peak recites the definition as if in the classroom. A process of collapsing spatial causality along the Euclidean distance between 2 points by negating mass simultaneously at both ends of a geodesic curve. Essentially, KAN channels allow for the near-instantaneous transport of raw materials between systems. They require huge volumes of energy, of course, and decades of construction, but once a KAN channel is established, it opens us up a system for infinite exploitation. The backbone of surrogacy is what XPR called them. Peak shakes their head. They might not be able to send anything more complex than a rock through them. Complex machines and people are, shall we say, reconfigured by the process. But for raw, molecularly pure materials, Peak flicks a hand. Whoosh! Where's this going? Peak pauses. What I was trying to figure out is whether the Helion system, this system, ever had a KAN channel. KAN channels are vastly expensive to build, to run. Not every surrogate system has one. Many use fraction drive ships to transport the materials to the nearest hub, but Solheim. Peak smiles. Solheim spared no expense when they established the system. There's a KAN channel? Yep. Peak's eyes light up. They shut it down before the collapse. They couldn't run the sender-receiver station anymore, but it was there. Still is, as far as I can tell, closely orbiting their star, or our star. Welcome back, Mighty Mer. Yeah, no worries. In fact, Peak grins, they've been building to this. I'm sure it's still there, because one of the issues with KAN channels is there are the massive waves of exotic energy that they can produce when cycling up. The flux. Exactly. Peak's face suddenly drops. Someone is starting up the channel. Who? Peak sucks in a breath. That, I don't know. They start counting off information on their fingers. They need a lot of resources to do it, and they need to have people from the core systems, but there's no real large-scale extraction in the Helion system anymore, so why would you go to the trouble? Just to trigger the flux? Peak rubs their red eyes. The flux, the wave, the KAN effect produces, it's a side effect, a problematic one, but it isn't a destructive force. If it was, the core systems would never have been able to use it. So why are the colonies collapsing because of it? Why is it chewing through systems, the kind of industrial systems set up to function within the range of a once active KAN channel? Peak is getting frustrated. The moons of Ember have been terraforming since before the collapse. They would have had to deal with the flux. Yet everything we have heard from the refugees says it brought down every system they had. Peak falls quiet, thinking it all through. Your mind drifts, too, thinking of the KAN channels, those vast acausal highways that prop up the core systems and their endless appetite for resources. This system has been quiet for decades. Solheim collapsed, most corporations gave up their claims, and apart from the cell-less ships that came to begin to work on the sidereal horizon, no one from the core has come here in all that time. You shiver as you imagine the attention of the core, the systems of logic and exploitation that created your suffering, turning toward the Helion system. A floodlight turned to the stark corner. A shrill bleep catches both of your attention, and Peak rushes to a screen, one showing a crude map of the station. On it, individual markers begin to flare up with insistent chirps. Peak looks puzzled for a moment, and then their face drops. No, 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 no! They lean in close. This doesn't make any sense. What's happening? The flux node are appearing elsewhere on the station. Peak pulls at their hair. I set the system to alert me to other flux nodes near the epicenter of the flux event, but these are everywhere. Hub, low end, shipyard. How can this happen? The only reason we saw flux nodes here is because it was the most rundown part of the station. They were barely shielded. But others appearing so far after the event? Peak turns to you. You're going to need to give me some data from these nodes, and quickly. I keep looking at what we have, but I need to know why they're popping up everywhere. Right now? Right now. We can talk more about KAN channels and system history when you're back, but this needs our attention right now. Peak turns quickly back to the monitor, their eyes following scrolling screens of code spewing from the newly fluxed modules. You leave quickly, but struggle to shake the image of the spotlight from your mind. You feel watched as you cross back into the Pilgrim Seed, on your way to a shuttle bay. You hurry onward, eager to outrun the fear. Back we go. Nodes, nodes, nodes. Hunting for some nodes. That part's all covered because of story that I haven't gotten to do in this save. Fluxed node. Needs a 4, 5, or 6. Here's a 5. Extract data. This node is turned inside out, its skin writhing with distorted data. Fluxed node. Alright, let's use the 6 and then reroll these. Use my 6, and then hope that I can reroll these 1s and these 1s and the 2 into something else that can get that data. Let's go to here, because this clock is the one that's farthest behind. This will add 2. You take a handful of jobs and work through them, sharing tips and chatting with the crews. You can feel them warming to you. Okay, nope, none of those will do, so I'll have to come back to it tomorrow. Random scrap item, very nice. You take on a patch job that has been on the board for ages and clear it quickly. The crew are very pleased. So on a 2, let's do something that's safe. Yep. Pilgrim Seed support. Okay, got the negative outcome, but that's still something. And then we'll go and pay for some food. Because Peak said to rush, I'm gonna try to get the rest of these nodes done in 1 or 2 days. I don't know if there's actually a clock attached to it. I don't see a clock attached to it here. But we need 3 flux data. I went to the gym yesterday, and so I'm very sore. Self-repair a little bit. So staying at 5 Dice for as long as possible. Seems like a good idea to me to work through the DLC stuff. Let's go up, because there may be data here. Yep, fluxed node. So, 4. Extract data. This node is in 2 places at once. It is there each time you turn. So, back down. And then... this goes all the way over here. And there's a 4. This node beats like a heart. The effect is unsettling. Okay, and that's 3 data. So now we can zip back over to Peak. Wow. Let's reroll. Okay. Not the best. Data. Peak loads the data into their decoding setup. I'll be just a moment. Don't leave, Sleeper. So. You watch as Peak works on the flux data, the nodes unfolding like flowers now, giving into Peak's increasingly sophisticated decoding protocols. Seeing data like this, as an image on the screen, is an almost unrecognizable representation to you. It's nothing like swimming among nodes and threads. Despite this, Peak has proven themselves to be more than able to handle these complex data structures, even through this limited representational paradigm. The bay door hisses, interrupting your flow of thoughts. You turn to see Eshe entering. Eshe! She looks up and meets your eye, but doesn't respond. Eshe stalks into the bay, head down. She looks tired and not in a mood to talk. How's the weapon hunt? Peak asks, without turning from their screen. Slow. Unsuccessful. Tedious. Eshe slams a bag down on the crate and hops up to sit on it. You still unpacking balls of yarn? With the Sleeper's help, Peak smiles. They brought me some good stuff this cycle. Maybe they could help you find the weapons you were smuggling? It's clear that Eshe doesn't appreciate Peak's tone. Peak holds up a hand. Shh! They lean in toward the screen. Son of a... what? They hid it in the wave of the wave! Peak is whispering to themselves. It's alive. They lean back in the chair. Eshe crosses over to look at the screen. Alive? Well, it's growing, it's processing, it's quietly working away in the dark. Look. You cross over to the screen and stand beside Eshe. In it you can see that Peak has all 4 nodes decoded, and the pattern of shadows from inside them sit on the screen like dark stains. Then you notice it, the movement, the thin threads that cross from one stain to another. As you watch, you notice the movement only ever happens in your peripheral vision, as if this thing, this shadow, knows it is being watched. This is how the other flux nodes appeared. Peak rubs their eyes. They weren't fluxed by the wave, they were corrupted after the fact. This thing, this shadow that entered this wave of the wake, it corrupted them, but it made the corruption look like the result of the flux. It's a sleight of hand. Peak runs a hand through their hair. The flux wave is so massive, so complex that it opens up the systems to be attacked. As it reconfigures exposed systems, this shadow is broadcast implanted inside. The wave from the KAN channel, it is a brute force way of hitting every system in Helion. Once the systems are vulnerable, Peak looks pale. Their eyes reflect in the screens. The flux isn't what is attacking the systems. It is the siege weapon, a Trojan horse. Then this thing takes over. Peak sits back in their chair. And it's already on the eye. Wait. Eshe rubs her forward. You're telling me there's a KAN channel on this system? Shit. Peak isn't listening. This is bad. I have to take this to someone. Peak looks desperately at you. Do we take this to Helene? I mean, they are the person here, and Saul isn't going to be the one to fix the eye. Is that wise? Eshe cuts in. Havenage haven't exactly made good decisions lately. They are the station administrators, Eshe. Peak is desperate. They need to know. The argument rages between them, and you watch them shouting. You sick. Or as you watch them shouting, you feel sick. After a while, they stop, running out of things to say. An unsettling silence descends on the bay. I need more time, Peak says quietly. I need to look at solutions, try to build a case, collate the evidence. We mess this up. They look down at their hands. Eshe goes to speak and then thinks better of it. Not a word, Sleeper. Peak meets your eye. Don't tell anyone until they're ready. They sigh. With the tension among the refugees, Sol won't be ready to hear this, and Helene and Havenage are still mired in some kind of crisis. We tell Havenage they're likely to react badly, and if we tell Sol, I doubt he'll take it well either. If you can calm the situation in the flotilla, then we can choose. You're too twisted up in this, Peak, Eshe says quietly. This is not our place. We don't owe... Stop, Eshe. Peak thumps in his in their chair. Stop. You leave them like that, exhausted and troubled, and head back out into the Pilgrim Seed. When you close your eyes, you think of those shadows, that movement at the edge of your vision. Something dark, growing in the station like a parasite. You feel sick, your vision blurs. What comes next? You stop in the corridor and take a breath, putting a hand on a rumbling metal wall. For now, the eye keeps spinning. For now. There's a drive. We have 1 upgrade point. We need 2 for any of this stuff because we're so upgraded already. So. Music here is nice. Alright. Let's do this. +1. We already did a reroll. This one is safe. Okay. And then we can sunbathe with the last one. Okay, that's 5. And now sleep. So my friend Greg at Arvanelleron here on Twitch has been playing this game with his group called the R Vocalists, who are all like people who do voice acting. And what that means is that they split all these voices up. And so nobody has to do quite as much talking as I'm trying to do on the stream for myself, which I think is a very smart idea. And I was super glad that Greg decided to check out Citizen Sleeper and liked it enough that he wanted to make it into an Our Vocalists game for them to do in the kind of, not full cast, but multi-person cast performance. And so that's over at over on his Twitch, and then they archive at YouTube. So if you want to see another take on this game from a variety of folks doing kind of their best VO performances, you should check that out. I'm going to move this up just a little bit more to try to be, well, it's always going to be in the way of something, so. Ooh, 5s and 6s. Fantastic. Let's go get some work done. So, mushrooms. We can potentially fill this clock today, which is great. We can fill this clock, for sure. So let's do 5 plus 2. And then a 6 plus 2. Is that going to get 3 or just 2? Okay. This is a risky, so I don't know that I want to roll 1. This should be good. Okay, that's almost there. Go investigate mushrooms, and right, so I have to grow. Frost Rim. I will eventually run out of money. Just not yet. What's here? Buy some scrap, yes. Because the scrap lets me keep my condition up. So it is very useful. Okay, that's that. So I can make some money from this. Yeah, have a good visit, Mighty Mur. It is, in fact, nice to be back streaming. I have many games that would be fun to play, so just going to be a question of figuring out which games are better for streaming. And then sticking with it. Okay. Let's finish this over here with the Grumpy. Access assistance. The more you work for the singers, the more you get to know the crews, the more they will trust you. Sleeper. Petter calls to you as you cross the axis. He's standing by the same railing as you saw him at last time, and he beckons you over. I've been hearing things. He gives you a sidelong look. Good things? Petter smiles. Mostly. He rubs his hands together nervously. You wait for him to speak. You know, on song, I was a teacher. He glances at you, anticipating a response. Mechanical engineering. It's an essential subject on the moon where a single mechanical failure could mean the death of hundreds. He looks at the ground. The heat, the atmosphere, the radiation, all of it is hostile to us. My students knew this. Their work, their training, was respected. As long as they were careful and respected song themselves, they could have their choice of colony placements. They were always in demand. That meant I was respected, surrounded by friends and colleagues, always able to call in favors or pay them like for like. He frowns. Song colonies are small, close-knit. We look after our own. When the flux events started hitting, the colonies went dark overnight. We all knew what those failures meant. Like always, we lost more people than any of the other moons. He balls his hands into tight fists. Not a single one of my students left song. The future was cut off just like that. Our future. My future. He flexes his hand. What am I out here? What use am I? Song is a fading memory, and the systems we built there are useless outside its orbit. How am I supposed to move on from there? He looks at you, eyes steely gray and glinting. Find someone to teach. Petter pauses, thinking. You don't give up, do you, Sleeper? You just keep going. Petter shakes his head. You remind me of a student of mine, one who entered the program for one of those smaller colonies. They didn't have the advantages of some of the others, but they were stubborn. Stubborn as hell. By the end of the program, they were the most skilled of their peers. They didn't get the best assignment, maybe because they didn't spend as much time making the kind of connections that would help get you there. But that didn't matter, because I knew they would make the best of anything they set themselves to do. Petter is smiling now, buoyed up by a little memory. Singers are stubborn, Sleeper. We aren't going to change easily. We won't forgive easily or take help easily, but we'll hold strong. You can count on us for that. Petter stands from the railing. When you see Saul again, you can tell him that. You can tell him how the crews of Ember's Song operate. Tell him we will resist. If that means resisting Hearth's imperialist ambitions, so be it. If it means resisting the flux, so be it. If it means to, as you have, help others resist those same pressures, so be it. Petter smiles, and then tell him to leave us alone. He turns, his step lighter, and heads off toward the center of the Axis's hub. Tsundere? Okay, so with one die left, let's do some self-repair. Let's do a little sunbathing. Still got some energy. I think let's do one more day and then call it for the stream. Oh, that something was twitching. Might have been my eye. Hopefully not. Oof, lost a lot of energy. Okay. So, one of the ships is on board. So you need just a little bit of help. So now, yep, another talk with Aki. You and Aki stand side by side at the viewing window in silence. The dust swirls and you glimpse the twisted root systems of the steppe silk through the ochre haze. After all these cycles, you feel a strange connection to a world on which you've never set foot. Aki shifts from foot to foot. She seems restless, eager to speak, but unsure of what to say. We did it. Aki smiles at you warmly. We did. She pauses and turns back to the window. What is the value of all this? She asks suddenly. Of preserving a world we have left behind. Conservation. Aki is silent for a moment. These creatures should be protected, yes. But for us, their conservation is conditional. We keep them alive because we need to use them. We can't pretend we are conservators when we harvest as much as we are able. Aki paces away, lost in thought. I'm grateful to you for helping protect the dust houses, for ensuring their slide into decay is delayed, even averted. But now I find myself in an impasse. The stability of the dust houses changes things. It makes me aware of how blinkered we have been. Aki stops to look at you, her posture somehow different. If the ecosystems of steppe, of its people, cannot grow to meet the future, why preserve it? She frowns. Are we just slaves to the preservation of what came before? Inheritors. Aki nods. The weight of this inheritance is heavy. Aki comes close, holds her hand in hers. We must change. We must change to live. She smiles. I have seen that in you. The steppe, these people, this ship, should serve more than heritage, than history. They should serve the future. She takes a breath. There are those in the flotilla that need clothes, that need food, that can benefit from the gifts of the steppe's ecosystem. I want you to invite them. Can you do that for me? Of course. I know that Soul sent you. She smiles. You can tell him Aki, captain of the Wind's Long Shadow, invites all the people of the flotilla to come. Captain? She smiles. You never asked. Aki steps away. You want to know what the flux to? About its origins? Its purposes? She smiles. You wish to protect your home as we could not. I'm afraid I don't have much to tell you. It is an exotic wave of sorts, an energy that passes through matter. It shifts the very charged particles which run through our electrical systems. It's possible to shield against it, as you would radiation, as we have done with the dust houses, but only while it is weak. The flux event here was much like the first one we felt on Ember's Steppe, localized, destructive, but bearable. But in time, its strength grew. I don't know if it will be the same here, but... She pauses. It is coming from the center of the system, from the close orbit of Helion star H1. That is all we could uncover. She is silent for a moment, unsure of what to add. I'm sorry I cannot offer more, but you are always welcome on this ship. She smiles. I hope I will see you when the others come. She squeezes both your hands. I hope this ship, these dust houses, can be more than a museum. I hope they can be a home. With this, she turns and leaves, and you feel that word home resonating within you like a struck bell. Okay. So, maybe we actually finish this thing today. So we put 2 in here. And that finishes it. You focus on the most important tasks first. Ship repair, supply chains, organization, and quickly see the effects. And here's Soul. Soul finds you deep in the layers of the Pilgrim Seed, working on a patch for a life support vent. You hear him coming. his suit hissing as he does. I had to ask around to find you, he smiles. Seems you know the place better than me these days. Doubt it. Sol nods. I was in the work crew that built this thing, so maybe you are right. He winks. Sol holds out a hand. Stand up and let me see you. He pulls you to your feet. Don't believe we ever had a sleeper on Ember's hearth. Sol looks you up and down. Sure do make me wish we had. Could have done with a few workers as good as you. Sol tilts his head. A little on the quiet side, though. Seems like I owe you some answers, seeing as you've been working on hard on the Pilgrim Seed these past cycles. He leans against a crate, his suit creaking. What do you want to know? Ember's hearth. Sure. He smiles. I mean, I spent my whole life on that rock, so I have plenty to tell. I'll save my life story for another time, he winks. But the short of it is that Hearth is the first of Ember's moon. The biggest and most populated, which is down to the successful terraforming system Cybele set up when Solheim owned the system. How are relations with the other moons? Sol smiles. Well, it depends on who you've been talking to. You shouldn't mistake me for a politician, Sleeper. That's for others to do. He gives you a look. But Ember's Step was the test ground for the terraforming tech the Hearth is built on, while Ember's Song was the extraction site for the raw materials and the energy needed to make it work. You can imagine that might lead to some tension. However, Sol holds up a hand. Despite what people might say, Hearth was never fully stable. Sol shakes his head. Cybele liked to talk it up, but after they pulled out and Solheim left, our people discovered they'd have to keep the system running themselves, or the place would soon end up as dry as steppe. Hearth was good as long as the evaporators kept running, kept filling our skies with clouds. Even after the collapse, our people kept those things going, turning that subsurface ocean into a periwinkle blue sky. Sol smiles. Flux ended that, though, and when they failed, rains failed, and the harvest with it. Sol pauses. And soon you have a city without a way to feed itself. Sol shudders. That's when we, some of us, made the decision to set out on this place. He gestures at the Pilgrim Seed and look for another future. Anything else you wanted to ask? There was something. What do you want to know about? The flux. Sol sighs. That's what I imagined. He scratches at his beard. Can't say I'm an expert, but I can tell you what we witnessed on Hearth. At first, we ignored it. A few farms had their automation systems blink out. Lifter suits locked up. Bots reset their schedules. Nothing we hadn't seen before. But then news came out of Passero that they'd been hit harder. The local network had gone down and no one could get it back up. It was rough for a while, but out in the farmland we were used to that. Passero? Capital of Hearth. Tens of thousands of souls made it their home. Sol grimaces. Anyway, we thought the flux was a freak event until the day they got the network running again. That's when the cascade happened. System after system corrupted, data lost. Then another flux hit, and another. Bots were running circles in the fields. People had to be cut out of their lifter suits like mine in the city. I never saw it, but I heard from the others. Sol shivers. It only got worse from there. We couldn't seem to fight it. It cut us right open. That's what I know about the flux. Some folks say it came from the inner system, that it might be connected to some old tech there or something. But I never heard anything more than rumors. Sol scratches their beard. Sorry I don't have better news. Sol shifts on the crate. Anything else you wanted to ask? What do you want to know about? You? Sol squints at you. You want to know about me? I'm not sure that was part of the deal I was thinking of, Sleeper. Unless you were asking about this. He wraps in the middle of his suit. In case you haven't guessed, this is the only thing keeping me vertical. He adjusts his shoulder piece. It's a lifter suit made for work in the fields. We had to modify it so I could walk around after the accident. And that's all I'm saying, Sleeper, because to be honest with you, I don't owe you more than that. You want to know about the flux, about Ember's Hearth? Go ahead. But don't pry into my life, and I won't pry into yours. Sol lets the silence sit, staring hard at the floor. The suit seems to loom over him, looking more like a burden than a support. With the bars around his head, you suddenly start to think of it as a cage. Look, I don't mean to be rude. Let's leave it there. There's too many eyes on me, this ship as it is. I'd rather just slip into the background. Thank you very much. I'm good for now. Yep. Sol stands, flexing against the suit. He takes his cane in his hand. Keep it up, Sleeper. He smiles as he leaves. You're making me think I need to start making new plans for this place. With that, Sol leaves, and you wonder what he means. As he creaks away down the corridor, you can't help but feel there's more to him than it seems. And now I think we get the everybody's working together events. When you arrive on the bridge of the Pilgrim Seed, Sol is waiting for you. You wouldn't believe the messages that come through in the last few cycles, Sleeper. He smiles. Ship from the steppe is sent a goodwill gesture, a whole cache of supplies from their own farms. I'm not sure how we'll use them, but the gesture is a welcome one. Song, meanwhile, are apparently accepting supplies again, although a little reticently, if I may say so. Saul smiles. I don't expect them to change anytime soon, it should be said. And what I'm wondering, Sleeper, is what part you play in all of this? Saul eyes you, waiting for an answer. I helped where I could. I've come to expect that of you, Sleeper. He smiles. You look at Saul, his eyes bright and eager, and you wonder what he sees in you. Are you a tool to be used or an ally? It can be hard to tell. I wanted to show you something. Saul squeezes your shoulder, turning you to face the lift. He leads you along the axis of the ship, toward the engines, the clanking of his suit accompanied by constant hammering and welding that fills the echoey bulkheads of the Pilgrim seat at all hours. With the cordon lifted and shuttles able to go under the salvage, scrap, and barters for supplies, the ship has become a place of transformation, moving toward some state yet to be revealed to you. You look at Saul. What's his plan here? What is he preparing the Pilgrim seed for? Or his sharp eyes simply focused on making it through the next cycle? Suddenly Saul stops in front of a huge bulkhead door, like the seal on the front of a dry dock hanger. Dry dock hammer. What would dry dock hammer be? It's like an alcohol name? Anyway. He signals to someone in a cabin high up, attached to the wall, and they begin the process of opening it up. The Pilgrim seed was built as a short-range freight carrier, no? The amber warning lights in the bulkhead door send spinning shadows across Saul's face. We built it to ship the entire harvest from thousands of farms to the silos at Paso Row. When we realized we'd need to leave, it was the biggest ship we could muster. Saul raps on a metal plate. And somehow she's carried us all the way here. We? Farmers mostly, from outside the city and the edges. He flexes his shoulder beneath his suit. We saw it coming first, I guess. Knew it was time. Others didn't want to believe. I was a farmer, had a whole load of land and people to run it. My people helped convert this place for the long trip. He looks at his feet. Others led, organized the evacuation, and debated the plan. What happened? Not one of those folks made it. Saul rubs his forehead. We were out there in the black a long time before we got here, Sleeper. Things happen. The upshot is I was chosen to take over. I guess my crew trusted me, and I knew the ship. I argued, reminded them I'm no leader, and that I'm sick, but well, when service chooses you. A loud klaxon sounds, indicating the bulkhead doors are ready to open. They groan as they slide back, the metal squeals echoing throughout the vast ship, bouncing off its hard-plated walls. At first, all you see is darkness. Then the lights go on in huge strips that stretch back and go as far as stretch back and back as far as you can see. The space in front of you, a vast bay, bigger than any of you have seen, is empty. When we left Hearth, we didn't have the time or resources to convert the entire ship. Saul begins leading you into the massive space. So much of the freight space we sealed away, shut down. But now we have time, we have resources. We stabilized here, at least for the moment. Now is the time we make use of all this. What are you planning? What do you think happens next for the Eye, Sleeper? The flux has already hit one part of the ship, one part of the station, and from what I know, it'll hit again. On Hearth, we lost everything. There isn't much time, Sleeper, but there is enough time to do something. Think of the number of people we can fit on here. The farming stacks, the housing, hell, we can plant some of those mushrooms you love so much. This is the way forward, the only way. We need to fill this ship with able bodies and head for the Starward Belt. I thought the Eye was your destination. It was, until the flux hit here. Now it's just another stop. I'm glad of the chance to resupply and salvage, but we need to go further out. I want you to help me. You know the Eye, you have connections, and you can work hard. I've seen it. Saul meets your eye. I know you're like me, Sleeper. You didn't choose service, but it chose you. There are other ways. If you know them, go ahead. But I'm telling you, this is the opportunity we have now. I know it's a lot to think about, Sleeper. Trust me. Saul begins to lead you back out of the bay. But think of what we can do here. The flotilla can't last forever. We need more than just farmers to make this work. We need to build a new world for ourselves. I've heard that out there in the belt there are people who've been setting up since the collapse, making something of their own. That's our future. tucked away in those rocks, far from all of this. Saul sighs. I didn't bring my people here just to let them die somewhere new. Saul crosses back over the threshold of the bay and signals for the operator to close it up. The door groans, and Saul waits for it to stop. Think about it, sleeper. Saul claps an arm on your back. But don't wait too long. This is happening soon. And he leaves you there, in the silence of this vast bay, your head spinning with the thought of leaving the eye. Alright. We're going to use that. And then for 3 upgrade points, we can get to the +2 stat. We may not do that. I don't know that there's enough game left for that, honestly. Okay. I mean, it feels like that should be the end of the episode, but I'm not sure that it is. So I'm going to sunbathe. Reroll. Across. Do a couple things to get money, maybe. Can I buy from here? Already bought everything. That's already gone. Okay. So Peak wanted time to figure some stuff out. Gathering evidence. So that might be the end of the act, but this feels like a good place to end for today. And I've done lots of talking, so I think I will let that be that. As a reminder,
all of you to succeed. I want all of you to keep doing what you're doing.
I'm just going to mute that so it doesn't show up on my audio, just in case. Thank you so much for joining me to Mighty Mur, The Kids Are Asleep, QCG Aaron, and anybody else who was here that's not a bot. We did have some spammer type people, but we had a number of folks hanging out and chatting, which is always very fun for me. It's great to get to share this game again with people and flex a little bit of my own voice acting skills. I'm going to look here and see what is up. So I think we will do a raid over to Fawn and Games, who's a variety streamer and TTRPG actual play streamer. They are playing Terra Nil, which is a game that I've been hearing some cool things about it. It's like a city builder in reverse. And that is going to be all for me. I hope you have fun over at Fawn and Games. The command for the raid is Team Turbo is here, but honestly it doesn't matter. I'm not looking to do like... The streaming is mostly for me and to hang out with all of y'all, rather than like build a brand or whatever. So head over if you like. I hope you enjoy what they've got to show and share. They've got a cool community over there as well. And I will see you all next time. Yeah, probably next Wednesday. Bye. It's very strange.